Afternoon, guys. Welcome to Pathfinder Yurt. I've had quite a few questions lately concerning winter packouts and things of that nature, so I thought maybe what I'd do is I'd kind of walk through the basic equipment that I brought into this yurt with me and the basic equipment that I would take if I were going to do a 3-day or even maybe a little longer extended stay in a winter type environment. The first thing that's really important to understand is that this equipment will always incorporate, at least the 5 C's. Beyond that, the 10 C's of survivability is basically an emergency kit for you to take with you if you're recreating in the outdoors, especially if your skill levels are a little, minimal, or they're not quite where you think they should be. Then those extra 5 items will help you get through. I generally will carry most of the 10 C's with me anytime I go out. There may be a couple things in here that you don't see that aren't involved in this kit, but it will be because I don't think I need them or because I can do without them. So understand that before we go through this. And the other part of kit mentality that I have when I think about the things that I'm going to carry in any situation is I'm always going to opt to be tool heavy. Okay? What I mean by tool heavy is if you understand how to make things out of what's around you and you have the tools to do that, then you always are in a better position. So if I'm going to be tool heavy, that means I'm probably going to have a knife, I'm probably going to have an axe or a saw, I'm probably going to have a multi-tool. And if I have all 3 of those things, there's not a whole lot of things I can't make with natural materials if I really need it. Again, thinking about the 5 C's that I don't want to have to make out of natural material, if I really have to get something done quickly, I'm going to carry those 5 C's. But I'll always go tool heavy to err on the side of having more than enough. So the first thing I want you to look at on this, and I put the stuff on Iris's bunk because she's not in here right now. She probably will not sleep in here every night with me over the next month or month and a half, but I'm going to try to do my best to live out of this yurt, understanding that I have to have an internet connection to be able to upload these videos, and I'm not sure that I can get one inside this yurt. I'm not sure if the wireless that's located probably 500 or 600 yards from here will work or not, but I haven't tested it yet either. So let's look at this wool blanket. Wool blankets are an asset in any situation that you can possibly go into. A wool blanket that's a good wool blanket, that's hand loomed, that's woven out of virgin wool, is very, very expensive. This is a CJ Wild or CJ Wilde blanket, and they are no longer made anymore. You can find them used sometimes, but they are very expensive. They're not what I would consider common man by a long shot. A good wool blanket is hard to find. You can find some military 100% wool blankets, but they will not do what this wool blanket does. This is one of those things where you spend the money one time and you forget about it. This blanket is as good to me or as warm to me as an MMS sleep system for the most part, other than the fact that it's not completely waterproof. But I've slept in this thing below freezing before with no problem. It's held together with a couple straps that go on my Duluth pack. So it can be put on the top or inside the Duluth pack, and I've got a couple of steel rings on here in case I want to carry it in tump line fashion. Okay. As I said again, tool heavy, right? Okay, so what I've got is I've got my 19-inch hunter's axe, SA Wetterlings. An axe is an axe is an axe is an axe? No, it's not, okay? Get a good axe. There are several good ones on the market. SA Wetterlings is a good axe. Obviously, Gransfors Brooks is a good axe. Snow and Neely makes a pretty good axe. Any of those axes will suit the purpose that you need. But in a wintertime environment, a folding saw is probably not the best option. An axe is a better option because you're going to have wood that's frozen or it's been cold for a long time. It's going to be a lot harder to cut with a saw than it's going to be with an axe. Multi-tool, I always carry my Leatherman core. Pathfinder knife with a large ferro rod attached. Pathfinder spear point slid into the sheath, okay, and it slides right into the back side of the sheath right here. It's got a pocket in there. It's almost made for that. It fits in there perfect, goes on my belt, gives me several tools in one. I've always got my repair needle gorilla taped right to the back, so I've got that needle with me all the time. I've actually got some repairs I need to do today on a wool sweater. Okay, let's go into containers. Okay, containers. I have this MSR Seagull container. You've seen this in quite a few videos. I carry it all the time. Anything that I've got that's a container is going to have to carry something. If it's not carrying water, it should be carrying something else. Inside this one I have a shard of cotton cloth that I can use to make char cloth with if I need to. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 foam canisters in here that have spices in them, and those spices are not only for spicing up my food, they're also medicinal. So think about that when you're putting together your spice kit. Things like sage, things like cayenne pepper, things like garlic, all of those things like cinnamon, they're all medicinal. So make sure those are the things that you add to your kit. I also have 2% tincture of iodine in here, a big wad of steel wool, and a spare lighter. So that's basically my cook slash part of my medical slash part of my fire kit, all at one shot right there. Okay. Got designed 32-ounce bottle. I understand, very hard to find right now. This is a straight walled one. I know these are tough to find, guys, but they'll be back around sooner or later. Vargo titanium cup. With that, I can cook just about anything I need to cook with those two items. I have 2 sharpening devices that I carry with me all the time. Lansky's diamond rod, Baco file, coarse medium. I'm sorry, fine and medium to sharpen my tools with. A titanium spork. I've got one hank of cord right here. It's got a toggle in it, and that's used for a lot of things. I've showed that in a few videos lately in the 21st Century Long Hunter series. I can use this to remove my Got Design bottle from the fire. I can use this to clean my 12 gauge with. I can also use it for a trap if I need to. Just a very handy little item to throw in your pack and carry. Doesn't weigh anything, doesn't take up any room. Then I've got a spare hank of cordage that I carry with that. Those go in the top pocket of my pack, so they're readily available all the time. Then I carry a full roll of bank line. This is the 165-pound test. Candling device, part of the 10Cs. You know, I discourage flashlights. I always say carry a headlamp, carry spare batteries in your bag. Make sure that you've got that in case you have to have it for some reason. You've always got a light. You know, I discourage people using these unless they absolutely have to, but there are times that you just absolutely need a headlight, and when you need it, you'll have it. 1-inch roll of Gorilla Tape. Always duct tape is in my bag in some way, shape, or form. A lot of people have asked me about this tape that's on my axe handle here, okay? What material is that? What is that? It's friction tape like you'd use on a hockey stick. It's just to keep me from slipping off this axe handle if it gets wet, and also to keep me from getting blisters, but it does a real good job of gripping on this axe. That's why I put it on there. It's not that the axe handle cracked or anything like that. Fire. We went over this fire kit in the 21st Century Long Hunter series. It is a very inclusive fire kit for a small package. It has the rubber bands on the outside of that, which are flammable. It also holds it shut and covers up the hole to make this a char tin if I need to be. It also has a couple of wet fires in here, a lighter, a ferro rod, a Fresnel lens, and some cotton cloth to make charred material with, and some steel wool. So there's a lot of inclusive fire material in this small kit. On top of that, I carry a small rag that's got chopped up greasewood in it. Again, I've got the cotton material there, I've got cordage there, and I've got the greasewood there. So I've got a lot in that little bundle, but this gives me just a little oomph on my fire if it's cold and wet. And then I carry a chunk of tinder fungus as well. Again, you can never have too many ways of starting fire. I always have at least 2 lighters in my kit. I have one in my Seagull, I have one in my Altoid tin fire kit right here. So that's 2 lighters, plus if I have one in my pocket, that's 3. I carry my journal with me all the time in a Right in the Rain pouch. And then my backpack, okay? And this is the Bushcraft model backpack by Duluth. It's just a big bucket style pack, and that's what I like. It's got a sleeve on the outside for an axe, for a shotgun. It also has 2 outside pockets to be able to get to my water bottle easy and my cordage and supplies like that real easy. Everything fits in this pack with no problem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you over to the other side where I've got my clothing, which is what takes up the majority of this pack, because this blanket takes up half of one side, a mesh bag takes up the other side of clothing. Now, as far as foodstuffs go, what would I carry for foodstuffs? Well, I'd probably have very minimal food with me. I always do take food of some kind. I've got my spices. I usually would have a quart freezer bag of some kind of cornmeal, malted rice, some kind of a rice meal or something like that, or just regular flour. And then I would have, you know, if I could find a bag of jerky, I'd take a bag of jerky with me, or maybe even some salt-cured bacon. Salt-cured bacon was a really good thing to carry in your pack because it doesn't go bad, especially in this kind of weather. And then you can cut it up and it gives you a real good fatty food in the morning to get you going and keep your body burning that fuel all day long. So let's move over to the other side and we'll talk about clothes. Okay, so we'll move over to the other side of the yurt here and talk about clothing for a minute. And again, we're talking about a 3-day plus type expedition or hunt, something like that. I've got a thermometer laying here. case anybody's curious, it is 59 degrees in here right now, and I really don't have the stove stoked up too hard. I keep this thermometer here just to kind of regulate and monitor my temperature with my stove, because I don't want to overburn wood for no reason. I just want to keep it comfortable in here. So, talking about clothing for a minute, I'm a big advocate of wool, especially in a wintertime environment. You know, wool is going to be the king. Wool retains 80% of its insulative value or more, even when it's soaking wet. So wool is always going to be the ticket for me. I've got this Columbia 100% wool overcoat, and I've got a pair of pants that go with that right here that I always have in a mesh bag in my pack in case it really, really gets cold. I've got another piece of cotton material here that's just a great big rag that sometimes I'll wear for a scarf. But it also, again, more bandages, more char cloth, things like that. An extra pair of wool socks, a set of wool underwear by Wool Power. I love these things. I mean, you can put these things under a pair of Versatac mids by Rail Riders or something like that. That's quick dry. And then if this stuff gets wet, you know, you can dry out this thin wool pretty fast. You can dry out those Versatac mids because they're quick dry type material, and you're good to go. I've got a fur hat here that I take with me, and I stuff in my bag in case this wool Pendleton isn't quite enough. I need something around my ears. I've got a mesh laundry bag that I stuff this stuff into in one side of my pack. I have a hood here that's basically just like a coif that goes around your shoulders and over the top that you can wear underneath a jacket that doesn't have a hood on it, or underneath a wool hunting shirt. That just comes in real handy at night. You can flop that thing over your head, and it just keeps you good, protected, and warm. It's also a real good asset when you're hunting. This is just a U.S. Army wool sweater. Believe it or not, fellas, this is actually one of my favorite pieces of clothing. It's got a couple of holes in it right here that I need to repair. I'm going to try to get that done today while I'm in here. But if you find these at a surplus or at a gun show, make sure that you look at this tag on the inside, this government tag, because it'll tell you if it's 100% wool, because they're not all 100% wool. So just like a military wool blanket, you know, if you can't find a tag on it that says it's 100% wool, don't trust it, unless they'll let you set fire to it and see if it'll melt or whether it burns. A couple extra straps that I've got here, leather straps for my backpack, so that I can strap a second wool blanket or my tarp or both to the top of my bushcraft pack. And I do carry a second wool blanket with me much of the time, but usually it'll be what I would call a shard blanket. And that would be a very thin wool blanket, something like this, brown wool blanket like this one right here. That's real thin. It's not thick enough to really sleep in, but it's a good warming thing for around the fire. It's also a good secondary layer with your wool blanket, or, you know, a ground layer, a ground barrier, something like that. And then I've got this Duluth anorak for cold, wet weather. It seems to work out really, really well. I've just begun testing it hardcore, but I have worn it in some pretty nasty stuff so far, and it seems to repel water really good, and it definitely cuts the wind without question. I recently obtained these Arctic mittens that go with that anorak. I've walnut dyed those. They're not quite as dark as the anorak, but that's okay. I don't want everything to match anyway. I want multiple colors when I'm in the woods. And then they have a red liner that goes inside them, just like the military Arctic mittens have. They're almost the same exact type concept. You know, they've got the heavy leather palms and thumbs in them and overguard over the top. And then they've got the wool liners that go in them that go with this red wool hunting shirt that I showed in the video from Duluth as well. I usually carry a set of rag wool gloves with me that I can wear until it gets really, really cold. Then I'm going to put the mittens on. But for the most part, these rag wool gloves will do you for, you know, some pretty cold, cold weather. So back to wool blankets for just a minute. You know, I'm a big advocate of the wool blanket. I don't think you're going to find a U.S. Army wool blanket that is going to be enough for you for an extended time period. If it was an emergency and it was your 10Cs that you were carrying and you had a military wool blanket that was 100% wool combined with something like a reflective tarp, like a reusable space blanket, you can get away with that for an overnight emergency. But to be comfortable for a 3-day scout or a 3-day hunt or a 3-day trek into the woods, you want to be, you know, a little bit more prepared than that. And that's why I carry, you know, a heavy handmade wool blanket and then some type of a shard. And that shard may be some off country military blanket that's 100% wool but it's thin, or it could be something like, you know, this military, this 100% wool U.S. blanket right here. But like I said, unless you can find a tag on that thing that says it's 100% wool, and they'll have a tag on them and they'll say, you know, 80% wool, 20% reprocessed wool or something like that, but they're still 100% wool. If you don't see that tag on there, don't trust them to be 100% wool, because they're probably not. No matter what people tell you. Everybody says U.S. Army wool blanket, U.S. Army wool blanket, but most of them are 70-30. So anyway, I wanted to go over that pack out with you guys today. It just shows you the things that I do carry. I carry, you know, more stuff with me in the wintertime, and I carry more stuff with me if I'm planning to be out in the woods for 3 or 4 days at a time, or if I'm planning to stay somewhere for an extended period. I'm going to have more stuff with me, and that's important. But the more isn't more gadgets. The more is a couple more tools. The more is more clothing to keep me dry and give me barriers to keep my body's core temperature under control. That's the more. The more isn't I need, you know, $1,500 worth of gadgetry to keep me alive. It is important stuff that's tried and true over time. Wools, heavy canvas, things of that nature that are going to keep you alive when it counts and make you comfortable for that 3 or 4 days that you plan on spending in the woods on a trek, scout, or hunt. So I'm Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School, coming to you from the American Yurt Pathfinder Yurt. I'll put a link to their website on this video as well, and I'm going to do a video review, a full, you know, Pathfinder cribs on this yurt shortly. So I thank you very much for watching my videos. I thank you very much for your support. I hope to see you again real soon, and we'll see you on the next video.